It is, I think, known that President Trump uses drama and uses said raising the ante as a negotiating tactic. I think the Prime Minister is dealing with it with excellent, with a combination of serious foresight, of great maturity, and I think a very, very powerful silence. America has actually been very strangely far more punitive with its friends than it has been with its foes. India buys only, I think the statistics might vary here and there, about 37% of Russian energy. China buys 47%. Why has no action been taken against China?
Why these double standards?
Exactly. This world of two laws, and not only double standards, may I say triple standards, wooing of the most fundamental elements in the Pakistan establishment, which is its military and its army chief. Don't forget, this is the same army chief of Pakistan, General Munir, who has introduced the doctrine of supremacism and fascism. The new order will not be built on any regional bilateralism. And any new order, as you will see from after NSA Doval's visit, cannot be built without the participation of India. We are not permanent enemies with anyone. Pakistan has made us its permanent enemy, using the terrorism as its only weapon, right? But that's an unusual factor for different reasons. With China, I think the relationship has improved remarkably.
Recent tariff imposed by President Trump has been a very big issue back in India. To discuss this issue, joining me is Mr. M.J. Akbar, the former Foreign Minister of India. So, sir, my starting question is, what is your take on this tariff, additional 25% tariff, just because we are buying oil from Russia?
There are many aspects to it, but let me begin with an old saying. A week is a very long time in politics. 2 days ago, Mr. Putin of Russia, President Putin, was a declared foe. I mean, after all, whole punitive action has been taken on the basis of us buying Russian oil. Although I must insist and say and stress that we have not violated any American law in the process. This is extremely important. But President Trump used this as the reason. Within the last 48 hours now, we hear that he is going to have a meeting with President Putin within a few days. So it's a volatile time, and we will see how things turn out on the Washington chessboard. Although many people are saying it's not a chessboard, it's a game of snakes and ladders, which is going on, initiated by President Trump. At this moment, as we talk, our NSA, Ajit Doval, who has now become the Prime Minister's crisis manager, is in Moscow, and he will be meeting President Putin. He will be meeting the Foreign Minister Lavrov. Tariffs, trade, security will be very high on the agenda. Simultaneously, you have heard the announcement that Prime Minister Modi will be going to China for the first time in 7 years. So a great deal of action and reaction is taking place, and things have not yet settled down. Now, it is, I think, known that President Trump uses drama and uses said raising the ante as a negotiating tactic. To that extent, all right, we can understand that, but we have to see where eventually the matter settles, and I think that process will be determined in over the next 3-4 weeks.
Akbar sir, what should be India's approach now? You have seen it very closely. You are in the minister, and how India should deal with this kind of situation now?
I think the Prime Minister is dealing with it with excellent, with a combination of serious foresight, of great maturity, and I think a very, very powerful silence, right? He is not falling into the trap of, many commentators don't realize that foreign policy is not an exercise in trivia, in verbal trivia. And Prime Minister Modi's silence and his actions and what he has done in consequence, I think has not only sent a very powerful message. It is what I call the core of India's Swadeshi foreign policy, that India's strength lies in India's people. Our policies will be measured by how much they protect the security and prosperity of the Indian people. That is primary in his mind, and I think the people now are beginning to realize that he will not surrender where, on agriculture, where India's farmers are going to be affected. He will not surrender on dairy items where India's farmers. On a parallel line, I think what perhaps America has underestimated is that America is losing a very, very valuable element of foreign policy. It is losing trust. America has actually been very strangely far more punitive with its friends than it has been with its foes. After all, I mean, if you are going to use trade with Russian energy as your excuse, then India buys only, I think the statistics might vary here and there, about 37% of Russian energy. China buys 47%. Why has no action been taken against China?
Why these double standards?
Exactly. This world of two laws, and not only double standards, may I say triple standards. Next, we should be waiting for President Trump to impose tariffs on America. Because America has been importing a uranium substance for its nuclear industry from Russia. Why is that outside the tariff regime? And I mean, I could go on today. The Europeans actually are buying in the last year over $67 billion worth of trade with Russia. There was no.
So, what is your understanding? Why do you think India is singled out?
This is something remains a very great perplexity, because India's relations with America have actually over the last 2 decades been strengthening immeasurably.
And bipartisan.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is I think, great unity in the Indian political class and among the people on strengthening the friendship. Why President of America should choose to actually dampen or even injure something that has been carefully built with great calibration and effort is slightly inexplicable. But as I said, once the final decisions are taken, then very quickly things may come back to what would be called a different new normal.
MJ Saab, you just said that America lost trust. Is losing trust, not lost trust, because still the process is on of negotiations. But do you think Mr. Trump's move, and especially when talking about Pakistan, they have destroyed the 2 decades of efforts made by the political classes of both the sides?
Well, what has been built so carefully cannot be destroyed so suddenly. But yes, it would be very foolish to pretend that there has been no damage. I think in particular, President Trump's very strange sort of wooing of the most fundamentalist elements in the Pakistan establishment, which is its military and its army chief. Don't forget, this is the same army chief of Pakistan, General Munir, who has introduced the doctrine of supremacism and fascism and religion-based fascism in his famous speech. Has President Trump's staff not shown him that speech? Not shown him what he said? He has been the architect of what is nothing less than ethnic cleansing. Over and over again, I find that America tends to exercise now the theory of 2 laws, 1 law for itself, 1 law for the rest of the world. This will not acceptable. We are in a different world. We are in a world of, and nations like India will stand up for a very different and a very logical new order in which the nation states shall be, I mean, not, it is, all of us are not equal in capability, but all of us have equal rights. And just to make my point, Prime Minister Modi has actually shown the leadership that the world has been seeking.
So you are talking about the new order now, like India will definitely be part of the new order. But don't you think it's a very complicated situation for our diplomacy right now, when China on one hand will gain ground after what US is doing, what many experts are saying. Now we know our relationship with China is very, very, very bad shape, in a very bad shape so far. They are having a very close tie with Pakistan as well. So where do you see India now moving to? Because after US it will be China, and we don't share very good relations with China. Now in the process of making good relations with US, India has also lost favors with Russia, if I can say that. So where do you see our diplomacy going ahead now, sir? Because you said about new order, these two will be the main countries in the new order, Russia and China.
I don't think the two are going to be only the two main countries. The new order will not be built on any regional bilateralism. And any new order, as you will see from after NSA Doval's visit, cannot be built without the participation of India. That much is absolutely, certain. Second, the relationship with China always has its ups and downs. We have watched that since 1962, and it is in a dynamic flux. And the management of that flux is really what is a critical element of our diplomacy, and that has been managed well. Because this theory of having permanent enemies is really a 19th century idea. There are very few countries. I mean, we are not permanent enemies with anyone. Pakistan has made us its permanent enemy, using the terrorism as its only weapon, right? But that's an unusual factor for different reasons. With China, I think the relationship has improved remarkably, a process that has been triggered. The fundamental fact of India-China relations, you must never forget, and that is what underscores its stability, is the agreement that was negotiated in 88 and then made into a treaty, is that there shall be peace and tranquility on the border. Now, for nearly 40 years, not a single bullet has been.
No, sir, but the Galwan incident happened.
The incidents will happen, but there has been no outbreak of armed hostility between the two, and the two countries have learned how to respect a treaty which they have signed. Now, that is, as I said, one of the principles. The differences will be sorted out. Actually, if I may put it, the India-China relationship is now structured around a very fascinating principle, that perhaps the solution lies in a non-solution. That since we cannot come to an agreement on the border,
agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Leave it on one side and get on with trade. Get on with relationship. Today I am happy to report, I was just reading somewhere, that the Indian tourism industry now is hoping for a revival of tourism from China. And there will be collateral benefits as the rest of the world finds changing and creates new economic equations within each other.
Don't you see it as ironical that at one point of time, all the Western bloc Western countries, like including America and NATO, were seeing India as a counterbalance to China. Now, with the latest changes in the geopolitics and strategic equations, there's a change. Now, we are seeing a complementarity between the two. How do you look at it?
I would suggest a very simple thing. We must stop worrying about how anyone else looks at us and concentrate on how we look at others, right? The moment you realize that Indian foreign policy is based, as I said, on the Swadeshi principle, that how we look at others is that slightly more, much more important than how others view us. Yes, NATO or the Western Alliance at some point may have thought of us as a kind of counterweight, military counterweight to China. But today, NATO itself has collapsed. Where is NATO was created for Western security against Russia or the old Soviet Union? The Warsaw Pact collapsed 40 years ago. The NATO is collapsing, it's crumbling in front of you. So, as I said, the dynamics of world equations are changing very rapidly. India must find a captain who can steer the ship through turbulence with a very calm mind and a very certain and sure hand. And in this respect, Prime Minister Modi, in this crisis, has once again proved that he's capable of both.
So, do you see any middle path coming our way soon?
I don't know about middle path. Middle path assumes that there are two ends, right? I think what we are seeing is a unique path being created in changing circumstances, in difficult circumstances, and being created with confidence. Since we are in the process, right, it is not easy to judge where the horizon lies. Right. But we know that the horizon of Indian foreign policy is in India's best interest.
And do you think that he's trying to negotiate a deal now? Because he has given some window of, I think, 27 or 29 days.
I began by saying a week is a long time in politics. 20 days is much longer.
So you will see a lot of movement in coming days.
I think that is, the process will find perhaps a settlement by within this month, in which a great number of things will also have to be resolved. If, for example, the America-Russia relationship is resolved, then he cannot use an excuse of Russian energy being a reason for punitive action. It's not logical, right?
But sir, I think he's not using any logic, because others, European Union, China, all are buying in a much greater capacity from Russia.
Indeed, I just gave you the figures of that. But however, we have to deal with the hand that is before us. But we are dealing it with, as I said, with strength, confidence, and I think it is not correct to get excitable just yet.
Now coming to the other part of it, sir, domestic. Now opposition is saying that Indian diplomacy has totally failed in this. And where is the friendship, and where is the kind of a hullabaloo made about relationship with America? We have seen it in the past that there was open endorsement of Trump by Prime Minister Modi also. So where is that friendship gone? Opposition is saying this.
Yeah, the opposition might say it, but I think the opposition also should really display a little more maturity, right? If President Trump has been quote unquote harsh with us, the closest American allies are Western Europe. They are security allies. They are members of NATO. They have been punished, right? I don't think their opposition is going around making such statements, because they understand that America itself. Now, I gather that one of the reasons why President Trump is making and is actually quite anxious about is because the American system is under pressure. Today, America's debt, which people don't realize, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, is crossed 35 trillion. Now, maybe the dollar can sustain it for a while, but not endlessly. So he has to keep on trying to, find ways of reducing that debt. And maybe this is one of those dramatic ways in which he has turned the whole world, not just us, into turbulence across the world. So, but we shall see what happens.
Akbar sir, there is another school of thought which is saying that see this as a personal and political kind of a thing, and not as a deal with America. Like, they don't perceive it as America is doing it. it is just an individual and wait for the midterm or next elections and things will fade away. What is your take on this school of thought?
Every president of America has legal powers which are, far greater than any other individual in a democracy. No other democracy gives an executive head so much power. So there is an element of, truth in such a prognostication. But we must always remember one thing. Uncle Sam has not become uncle of the world by being foolish. It has become uncle of the world by pursuing self-interest, right? And combining self-interest with a tremendous amount of military power. So the American system, the American establishment will find measures in which to, because instability across the world cannot be in the interest of America.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for talking to us.